Jakey boy. What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Creed of Crypto live stream. My name is Boi Crypto. I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host Crypto Ewok. Welcome into all of you. We've got a lot of people waiting in the chat already that are excited, despite the fact that prices have been straight poop for some time now. But that's okay. We're still here and we're still doing a show because that's what we do. We got Dave AI in the chat. We got Take a Break with Jake. Yes, please do. Hit the like button. We appreciate that. Let's see. We got DJ Moonboy. He's talking. Yes, we are launching. Stay tuned for a special announcement, possibly from Crypto Ewok here later this evening. We'll see what my reaction is to it. We've got Hex Fisherman. Yeah. So welcome in, guys. Hit the like. If you've never been here before, we do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about, since we went off air last week, the ETH ETF actually did get approved. So we were speculating about it happening the very next day after last Wednesday. It did happen despite some last-minute SEC shenanigans. It has occurred. Nothing good really has come from it price-wise yet, but hey, it's early on. So we'll kind of get into that here and a lot more tonight. And we asked the question, which coins will benefit most from it? Like, which coins are going to pump from this ETH ETF? So, Ewok, how are you feeling this fine evening?
Oh, another day, another week. Yeah, just kind of blah. You know, this time of the cycle is pretty rough, and you can still see it across the board. You know, things were starting to look up there for a little while, and now it's just kind of, like I said, it's going to be sideways and boring for probably several months for us, especially in the PulseChain community. You know, it sucks, but it is part of fortifying, I guess, what you believe in. And if you really believe, you know, these prices don't get much juicier. I've said that before, and it continues to go down. So maybe it will get juicier. I don't know. But, you know, some of these entry level prices are so much better than what we got as sacrificers. And if you're not taking advantage of it, well, you know, it's hard. And when it's really hard, that's probably the time you should buy.
Right.
Cojones, man. Takes cojones.
You know, I agree with that. I definitely think it takes cojones. I think it also, though, takes temperament. You know, I mean, like, it's so difficult right now. Like, we were both joking around about a tweet that was pretty inflammatory, but also funny on Twitter a little bit ago. That was somebody basically, you know, saying yet again, like, this has to be a bottom signal. Look at all these different things. And while I agree with the sentiment and everything that person said, I'm also like, I've also thought this like 5 times, I think, previous to this. Now, that said, we haven't actually got back down to PulseChain bottoms yet. It feels that way because of how things had been going back in March. And hey, we're not far off. I mean, we could very easily hit it again, which is just, I never thought we were going to get here, honestly.
Another whale or so decides to press the sell button, and we're right there. You know, it really wouldn't take much, but that's okay. You know, we want these people to wash out. We want the non-believers to be gone and have them buy back in higher. That's what does trigger the big green candles that we're all looking for. You know, when these guys get out and then things turn around and they're like, oh, crap, now I have to buy back in and I'm not going to get as much as I had before. You know, that's part of the cycle is when people rebuy at a higher level because they couldn't take it on the way down.
Exactly. Yeah. And we will wait and see. I mean, yeah, I mean, it is crazy to see some whales selling some of these lows. I think I saw, so whoever did on Monday, Memorial Day here in the US, we saw a big sell then, and I saw it was about $1.5 million worth. I think at one point it had been at least 4 times that or so. So watched the walk there for a second, but yeah, so that big sell was on Memorial Day. And we did see price kind of then drift right back up to 50% off sack rate. But, you know, then we've now stayed below it over the last couple of days and maybe have turned that into resistance now, which is kind of fun. So we'll talk about that real quick. We'll look at BTC and ETH because they run the show, regardless of what we like to think or anybody else does. Ethereum has been closing the gap, of course, because of the ETH ETF. We've seen pumps, obviously, from that. Bitcoin sits at just below 68K right now. ETH is right about 3,800. So we were pretty much right there last week when we were speaking, I believe, because we talked about that PulseChain sacrifice wallet having the 170,000 ETH and it basically being right back where it bought now at these prices. So it's $646 million USD, if anybody's wondering. So that's where we are with Bitcoin now. We do have ETH starting to close the gap because of the ETH ETF, and that's what we've really wanted to see for like our ecosystem and frankly all of altcoins. We've been talking about it. I mean, Ethereum is really going to be the ship that raises all tide that raise what you know what I'm saying, lifts all boats. And we need to see ETH kind of pump to really see a lot of the alts fly off. Now that doesn't mean that some altcoins have not already pumped hardcore over the last year. Some have. And, that's one thing I'll say as like, even though we're entrenched in the PulseChain ecosystem, I realize that we have been in a bull market and some coins have done really well so far. Now, PulseChain isn't the only one that hasn't had its day yet. There's many others that have not either. But, it's not like it's not like things haven't pumped. Some things definitely have. I just think that when Ethereum starts to, like, Ethereum's really not even gotten near its previous all-time high of 4,800 yet. So
Nope.
What do you make of where BTC and ETH are at right now, just in terms of time, what we may see the rest of this year, which we've talked about a lot, and how specifically I'm more interested in Ethereum. I'm really sick of Bitcoin because it kind of took the show for the first half of the year here. But with Ethereum, now that the ETF is here, will we see, like, people have talked about a 20% correction or a sell-off after the fact? It's been a week almost. We haven't quite seen that yet, but we haven't seen up only either. So what do you think of that for Ethereum?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of uncertainty right now. I mean, you can see by the RSI, it's just kind of hanging out. It hasn't done a whole lot. And it did get to the point where it was overbought, and it started to cool off. The cool thing is, though, when it cools off, it kind of stays stagnant, and that's okay. The RSI can go down while we still stay at these levels to give it some more the strength, at least. Ideally, we want to see it kind of come back down into this 50 range so that it can take another pump on the way up before it does become overbought again, and it'll cool off. But that is normal for this cycle, and especially because of the ETF that we're kind of expecting. So, with the news of that, I figured we would see a little bit more of a pump. But maybe it was because it was already in the overbought territory that we didn't. I'm not sure. So, we are definitely closing the gap with the Bitcoin Ethereum ratio as well. So, I mean, it's looking good. Actually, it's still looking rather strong. In fact, like I said, it does need to cool off a little bit. So I could see a little bit more sideways movement before people either, sell the event. I don't know if they will or not. I do see a pump coming though.
I do too. I mean, the most important thing is the higher time frame, and I mean, it's definitely it's definitely going to pump. I mean, this is Richard Hart. I mean, I know everybody wants to crap all over him right now, but I mean, like, he has been hammering away at this ETH ETF, and it's obviously the most likely cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin to get an ETF, and then it comes way ahead of schedule. And he was panned widely by really his own community for, not nobody knows who made the purchase of the Ethereum, but people panned the PulseChain wallet that bought all that Ethereum. And here we are, I don't think it was 60 days later or so, and then it got back to the price that it was already at. Now, right. Hindsight's 2020, and it's like, oh yeah, why did you buy a 3K or something like that? I mean, yeah, it's perfect to say that in hindsight, but you don't know how these things are going to pan out, and just how hard they're going to pump. Like, no one was expecting that this was going to get past this ETF in May. Everybody was expecting this to happen in August. So here we are, and it has. So, you know, when you have that amount of money to allocate to something, do you care about every little penny that you can scrape necessarily? I mean, yeah, would it be nice to have bought $3,000 Ethereum instead of 30? Absolutely. Yeah. Would have been nice to buy all the Pulse that I hold at the bottom of it. I mean, like, you know, it's hindsight's always 2020, but I think he looks at
Well,
that pretty damn
so,
smart right now.
something else you need to think about is maybe he was advised not to do anything at that point. Um, only because his lawyers may have said, let's see kind of where they're going. Let's see if they're going to put a freeze on any of these wallets, you know, before you decide to do anything like that. So there's
Right.
possibility that he was instructed not to. You know, everybody blames his timing, but I don't know that it was all necessarily his timing. Whether he had kind of, I don't want to say permission to do anything, but you know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So
Yeah.
that's a possibility as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. But either way, I mean, long term, it's going to be good for Ethereum. I mean, I don't know if, you know, I know we keep going back to Richard here, but I am interested in the guy's thoughts on like where the market may top out at and everything. And he had that tweet a couple of months ago where he was talking about 240K BTC, which, you know, inherently would mean like a $20,000 plus possibly Ethereum. I mean, if that happens, everybody's doing very, very well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody everywhere, basically. So I don't know if that's what we get. I mean, we have seen kind of irrational, unexpected BTC performance so far off of the ETF. I mean, we have. I mean, no, again, like I just said, with Ethereum and the ETF getting approved, nobody thought Bitcoin would be so bullish at the beginning of this year, and it has been off the ETF. So,
Yep.
could we see Ethereum do the? I'm going to get a DM from somebody getting angry at me for saying this. Sorry. But Sami's been talking about like that Bitcoin did what I think like a 90% move or something like that. Off of the ETF. I mean, if that happened to Ethereum, we'd be at over a $7,000 Ethereum by the end of the year. And I mean, that would put things in a very interesting place. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of that. But
Well, no, something else we didn't think about or mention. I don't want to say didn't think about, but consensus is also happening right now, right? So that's going on in San Antonio, Austin, somewhere in Texas. They're having their, you know, Ethereum convention. It's called Consensus. Usually when that thing lets out, there is you know, bullish activity, you know, because people come out of there just like any kind of event for let's take, for example, a multi-level marketing company. They have
Right.
these big conventions for everybody, and everybody comes out of there all fired up and ready to sell their product and push this and push that. And, you know, it does have a positive effect. So I think Consensus will also kind of have that similar effect afterwards. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, Crypto Coffee, if I'm not mistaken, is down there. I think I saw.
Yep.
So very
Coffee's
cool.
there. Gary Woods is
I
there.
just saw. Yeah.
Maddie is there. I forget. There were a couple others that I had heard names, but I forget at this point who they were. But yeah, there's several PulseChain advocates there. So
Right.
should be interesting.
Definitely interesting. Good to have advocates there for sure. We've had a lot of that, like at Mar-a-Lago and all these Trump events and stuff with PulseChain people too. So good stuff indeed. And we do have some Trump thoughts coming up here soon, which is going to be very interesting. So stay tuned for that. So that's BTC and ETH. ETH getting very, very interesting here. We're going to keep our eyes on that for the next 2 years probably. So let's take a look at the PulseChain ecosystem here next. As we said, so yeah, somebody sold about at the time $1.5 million worth of I think Pulse and PulseX only. But I did see that they also do have Hex stakes. Everybody was celebrating when they sold out, but then I think somebody pulled up that they also have Hex stakes too. Whatever. I mean, just send it down. I don't care anymore at this point. But so
I think their largest sell was Pulse X. Mostly, they had a huge bag of Pulse X. Several hundred billion actually is what they ended up selling. So
yeah, and that brought the Pulse price down below 50% of the SAC rate. We have hung out below there since then, so we're at about 52% off of there. You know, I know somebody said this last week, and I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, there's a psychological point where a lot of people just think of the sack rate because we're all aware of what it was and we keep referencing it. But is it even, you even said it kind of too, Ewok, that like the point we're at right now is technically like sacrifice rate for some
Yep.
people that, you know, got in. Whatever, it is what it is. But I mean, we're half off of what people called the sack rate, and at 4 zeros and a 4.7, I mean, we're only what 15%, 20% up off the lows right now. So
yeah,
not by a lot. Pulse X 80% off the sack rate. It is, I think, a little bit further up off the lows, or it's probably, I mean, it's going to be similar basically. So at 4 zeros and a 2, incentive token sitting at about 250 right now. It's come down quite a lot, of course. Hex has definitely gotten hit. It is at 7/10, 0066. Yeah. And EHEX, I mean, EHEX has basically found its bottom. I mean, it just kind of is staying where it is now, it seems like. You know, it didn't really get hit too hard after all this. And that ratio, I think you mentioned it last week too, Ewok, and I know people don't want to hear it, but the EHEX to PHEX ratio has gotten much closer after all this. So,
yep.
Yeah, I'm curious where you want to go with this. Maybe you want to just look at the pulse chart to begin with, and then I'll let you kind of take it anywhere you want. But yeah, I mean, this chart basically just has turned into the pyramids, basically, you know, over its lifetime, and come right back down here. So I did not think we would get down here. I didn't think there was a lot of levels we would get. I looked like an idiot about a month ago saying we'll never go below the sack rate again. I'm done with any guesses like that at this point. But yeah.
No more predictions from you?
Well, no more predictions from me. I'm done.
So
I mean, if it's going to mean this for price, then I'm done. Yeah.
8, 9, 10, 11. So 12. So we have one itty bitty green candle.
Yeah.
And 11 red ones. So 11 out of the last 12 weeks were red candles. We are very much approaching, you know, we're not far off. It's 3, 4, 3, 3, something like that. And we're at 4.7. So yeah, we're not far off of those local bottoms. Could do a double bottom. We've seen it before, right? And once it finds that area, takes off. You know, there's a lot of times where things will come back to test that low just to make sure. And not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think anyway. I mean, it does suck for price. It sucks for looking at your wallet and realizing the value that's no longer there. But we've been doing that for 3 years now. So
yeah, really. Yeah.
What is a little bit more to finally double test that bottom just to see? I think at this point, since we're so close, that is what we definitely could see, could happen. A double, and it could be a quick one too. It could be a wick where people have that number set for limit orders somewhere, and we just bounce off of it. It may be, like I said, it may be very short-lived, but might not be a bad thing. A lot of times when you find a floor like that and it retests it just to make sure, a lot of times like that, you're looking at a lot of up afterwards. So it could be very bullish, you know, long term, while it's a little bearish short term, but bullish long term. So I think that is quite in the cards at this point, and it wouldn't be a bad thing.
Well, you know, and even you're talking about a double bottom. I mean, you looking at a weekly chart here. I mean, even this right now, a year from now, you could look at this chart and say that was a double bottom right there. I mean, like we're pretty much close enough. I mean, it's like 30% away at this point.
Sure.
So, you know, and all I'm saying is like we're in that zone. I mean, we're pretty much already there right now. So what's another 30%? You know,
exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
It's not far off, and if it did happen, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal. You know?
Right.
So I do see that in the cards since we've come this low. You know, I thought at one point we were making higher lows, had a little pullback, and we were still better off than a lot of these. But once we went past this one, you know, it was kind of inevitable for it to go down a little bit more.
Yeah. Yep, I think so too. And we're just, you know, at this point, it's just kind of like, hey, I mean, we're along for the ride. And if you have, held these bags and been in this ecosystem for this long and everything. Like there's people that are upset, and it's like, look at this token. Obviously, you're going to be like, look at this token that ran. Look at this stuff on Solana and all these things. When you hear that, it's kind of like, well, what do you propose doing then? Like, what are you saying to do? Like, are you advocating for selling nearly the lows and buying something that already went up? Like, what is the strategy? And that's the thing that you already have to have figured out. I mean, like, even if you do have it figured out, you can still feel pain right now. I mean, like, you can still, hey, I'm DCing into this ecosystem. I believe in this. I've done the research. I don't need convinced of anything. When the prices go down, you're still convicted. But like, you can still have pain when you're like that. But if you didn't get convicted like that, and now you're sitting here like, oh, what do I do? I mean, what is your plan? If it's not something that you already had like written down somewhere or knew that you were going to do, and it's kind of a, going off of a whim because you're just feeling weak right now, you're probably not going to be happy in a year with the decision that you make,
Just looking at the incentive token, it's showing a lot more, I don't want to say strength, but we are way off of its bottom down there at 40 cents. So it's still up probably a 5x from its lows, if not a little bit more, maybe a 6x. So that's quite interesting how, Hart's Law isn't really coming into play. I mean, while there are still red candles, it hasn't retraced quite as much. And it could be because of just the sheer lack of volume of tokens. We always think about the number of coins that are out there, and there are far less incentive that are held by people. So a lot of those that get earned get dumped right away to go back into another coin or whatever it may be. So there aren't people holding huge bags of them other than, a handful of people.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think for anybody that is stressed out, there's some things to remember right now. And that is that, like Angry Beaver brings up a good point here. And so many people have said this, like, who has more money to DCA at this point? Yeah, not many. I mean, not many do. I mean, basically at this point, I doubt many people just have money, like cash, literally sitting, waiting to get in on the sideline because you wouldn't have thought we'd be coming back down here or whatever. And people are just kind of, I don't want to say living paycheck to paycheck, but just waiting for money to come in that they can DCA with maybe. That's kind of a personal finance decision, but I do understand that, many people, if you're really into this thing, you're not sitting there with tons of cash on the side. And who wants to be? I mean, once you realize what cash is, you don't want to be. So I understand that. Right. But some solaces to take here. So number one, you can buy at these prices still. Number two, if you're like Ewok and I mean, you can, if you want the entire stack, I mean, we're not telling you what to do, but I am doing it. I mean, you can throw your entire Pulse and PulseX stack into the LP farms. Like, and I'm not talking about like the ones against USDC or something like that are way more risky and offer like very high percentages. Some people do that. Some people like to manage it and stuff like that. If you want to do that, that's fine. But if you want more of like I don't want to say set it and forget it, but nearly, the PulseX farm offers, I mean, the lowest I've really seen is like 15% APY. It's been up to the low 20s. And as long as that ratio from Pulse to PulseX stays in that 2, even up to 3 to 1 range, which it has been basically its entire existence. I mean, PulseX was weaker way back at the very, very beginning. But as long as it stays in there and you're earning incentive token, I mean, it takes a lot for you to lose money from that. I mean, you're earning lots of incentive token. Incentive token is a like 3-4x away from the highs when it was $8 back in March. I mean, it was like $80 at launch, but I'm not talking about that. So, I mean, but it could be $80 again one day, you know what I mean? Or even if it's $20, like imagine what the yield is that you would be earning right now.
Yep.
So, I know people aren't as keen on hex staking right now, and I totally understand it. I'm not even telling you to be, but if you're looking for more like yield in the short term while you're waiting for this ecosystem to turn around and you're tired of just DCing into Pulse and PulseX, we'll throw it in the LP too. And I've also been an advocate of getting leverage on Pulse within the ecosystem too. And I have bought plenty of Tang Gang coins, plenty of other stuff. That's for you to decide what you want to do with that and taking very low risk buys on them anyway. But that's for you to figure out. I'm just saying that like there are ways if you're tired of not having enough money to DCA, or you're just stressed about the pulse price not going up, there are other ways to try to make money from this ecosystem in the short term, So what kind of advice would you maybe give, Ewok, for people who are just like tired of sitting on their hands, don't have more money to DCA? I know you're a fan of the LPing too, but what else do you have to say there?
Yeah, there are. I mean, so there's other things out there too that are, providing some passive income. It's not always just Pulse X. There's 9mm. There's, I believe 9-inch has some single-sided staking that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're not earning, you are earning the, what is it?
BBC
BBC coin.
know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. BBC coin, as a reward, but you can also turn that around, and some of these yields are pretty high percentage. There is the, you have to be careful and over collateralized, but you could also earn some yield with the liquid loans or the, some of the other platforms. There's a Hex one, there's a Pulse X one, there's a PulseChain one, where you can borrow against your funds and stake them, provide stability platform, stability coins. There's different ways to earn if you're really into it. Now it does take some work, and you make it what you make it what you want it to be. For me, I go in every once a week and take care of it. I will harvest my yield. I will go into liquid loans. I will harvest all of that stuff. I will sell what I need to, or sell what I've earned 4 out of the 5 weeks or something like that. Pay down the loan so that I'm still over collateralized. It's just one of those. There's so many different little things out there that are available to us, that if you don't have, fresh DCA powder, there's ways to get it. So, you have to do your own research and do what you feel comfortable doing. Obviously, if you're not comfortable doing it and you're not familiar enough with it, I don't recommend playing around with it, because it is a good way to, screw around and lose a stack of money because you didn't understand the protocol. So just be very careful.
Yeah.
That's what I said. 9-inch.
Yeah, you can do that. 9-inch has a lot of great products, and Hexy Bastard, I think, has a lot of awesome stuff in store for that too. So they are doing amazing things right now for sure. So shout out to them. But I know it's hard to sit on your hands right now, but there are things that you can do in the meantime. It's just a psychological thing. And I would also recommend people watch Frank Molina's channel. Like, he's a friend of the show, been on a couple of times, and his mindset about it, I think, is very valuable for people. And, you will have people that have the victim mentality that hear him speak and are like, oh, okay, would be nice to have a high paying job like you. And it's not all about that. It's also just having a long-term mindset. And let me, I'm guessing that even if you don't make, not that I know what Frank makes, but even if you don't make 6 figures or something like that, I'm sure that you can tweak your lifestyle to have more influx of cash every month. I'm sure there are things that you do not need to be spending money on. I say this as a Nazi minimalist, to say the least. So, I'm sure there's the other buying power that you can uncover for sure. So,
well, and something else we did see, and I think I mentioned this to you earlier today, we were chatting or something like that. I said, but this ecosystem, we thought there were a lot more diamond-handed people than there really are. It turns out that it was a bunch of people that got wealthy quick, probably retired because they thought this was going to go on forever. Now they're living off of crypto, and the price of the charts really show it. There weren't as many diamond-handed folks as we thought there were, or who said they were diamond-handed that really weren't. So, that's part of this whole thing too. I saw DJ Moonboy asking for predictions earlier, man. It's just so hard to right now.
I think he was messing with me. That was when I was saying I wasn't doing any more predictions, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fair enough. But I think that really is playing out as well. people retired way too early, and the charts are definitely showing. We got Hexologist looking for a job. He said it the other day on his stream. And I'm not calling him out for it, but
No,
I'm he's bored.
How you said it.
He's bored. He sitting at home being, he's probably 35, 36 years old, however old he is. He's bored. He wants to get out and do things too. So, getting a job isn't all that bad. And, it doesn't have to be anything like you're searching for a new career. But if you are or did retire on crypto, get something, that way you can maybe have a little bit extra to get back in at these levels, and you're not selling, especially not selling at these prices. You will thank yourself later for it.
As Dejin Moonboy said, that's why we're giving these other ideas to like not just sit on your hands, like earning that LP and stuff like that. I mean, you can see the ink rewards, and then when the ecosystem pumps, it's like, whoa, this is pumping way more than I realized it would because I have all this ink in here too. So little things like that can help you to at least see money that you're making on the side, because the ink rewards do the amount of ink anyway, maybe not the price so much now, but the amount of the ink token, even with 15% APY. It goes pretty hard. I mean, like, you'll see how much you're earning. Now, the bigger your Pulse and Pulse X stack, the better, of course. But you don't want to be a Derek Jeter, who I will say one of the most overrated Major League Baseball players of all time. Not good, not a good defensive shortstop. I just want to throw that out there. Everybody just loved him because he played for the Yankees.
And yes, he did say he has Crohn's. So
shit, that sucks. Okay.
Yeah. So
Derek
I wasn't
Jeter.
No, not Derek.
Hexo. Okay.
Hexo. So
I gotcha. Yeah. I hope Hexo as well. I wasn't laughing at like the thought of getting a job. I just the way
I wasn't
up out of nowhere. It was funny.
I know you weren't.
Yeah. So okay, there's our cope talk. So I hope that helped you all out. It's funny. I mean, like every now and then, and I'm not even like looking down on like cope conversations, or if you don't want to call that a cope conversation, that's fine. But in crypto, everybody's in need of one sometimes. Like sometimes, you can call it cope and we roll our eyes at it, but it's also just like, if you're this highly like leveraged or invested in something, like you do need to have kind of a psychological reset every now and then, and it helps. It helps me, Yep. Even if I'm deluding myself. Hey, fine. Anyway, okay. So can we talk Donald J. Trump? We have to talk the next potential president of these United States, Donald Trump, and how he's looking at crypto right now. So I'll start off here. So we've had a lot of things happen within, the government, the SEC, all kinds of things going on the last couple of weeks. We had obviously the ETH ETF passed. It seemed like that the SEC was going to delay it, but then it just came out a little bit later that day. So that is now done. Gensler, of course, does what he's told to do by the Democrats. The Democrats suddenly realize they need to play ball with crypto if Donald Trump's going to be doing it. So they are doing that now. The U.S. House, so far, only the House has passed a bill to ban the Fed from creating a CBDC. Now, that still has to go through the Senate, of course, but very interesting that all of these things are coming up right now. Obviously, the Republican-led House is going to be in favor of anything crypto. We're seeing if the Democrats will follow suit now because they have an election they want to win that they don't look too great in right now. We've heard Trump already talking a lot of positives. And now just the other day, we see the Trump NFT wallet on Ethereum bought 50 ETH. There's about $200,000 or so. I'm curious what you think of this. Should we care? How good for crypto could it be for Trump to get elected? And what was my follow up there? What do you make of some of these like Trump coins? Because there's like a MAGA coin on Ethereum. I think there's probably another one. Of course, we have OMG Orange Man Good from the Tang Gang that I stupidly did not. I was watching it and I wanted to get in so many times before it pumped, before anything ever happened, and I've just missed the boat. And I got to wait for a pullback. So, what do you make of all the Trump stuff when it comes to crypto and these parties going back and forth? This is going to be a wild year for crypto and legislature and stuff. So what do you make of all this?
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting. I think it's very exciting. I think it's, some of it on the left is obvious political theater. They say a lot of things because they realize the pull that comment from Trump had. when he said that he was for crypto, and they're like, oh crap, now we got to get these people too, right? So they're obviously going to say things like, well, yeah, let's all vote this way, and let's ban CBDCs, and so there's a lot of that little stuff that probably won't get any traction at all. It is for show, it is for votes. We know they do it. We know they say stuff every year about campaigns, and then nothing happens. So you kind of have to watch both sides though too, because Republicans do it as well. Nobody's immune from it. So but I do think it is pretty awesome that there were 200 grand put into Ethereum just the other day. So that's exciting. I'm pretty sure when those NFTs were sold, originally they were sold for Ethereum. So there was already, I don't know how much was in that wallet. I've never even really looked at it. I'm not one to go in and wallet dig for people's stuff. Like I don't really.
Yeah.
I'm not a wallet tracker like some are, and some are very good at it, and kudos to them. But I just have never been one. But I do know when the original NFTs launched, they were sold for Ethereum, which I'm sure they have gone up in value to the Ethereum that were acquired from those auctions as well. So no, it's exciting. I think it's I think it's needed. I think it does bring what would you say? They say there's about 50 million crypto users in the United States, as a rough guess. So it brings those people into the fold too. And we always want as many votes as we can for the guy that we're pulling for. And if that happens to work, then so be it. But yeah, it's exciting. I think overall it's exciting. It's something to look forward to and see growth finally. The main thing that we want to see out of all this is just clarity. We're not asking for a whole lot. We just want clarity. We want them to decide on what is what, and what's a security and what's a commodity. And before that happens, do they even have the right to decide that? Or should they stay in their financial sector and we stay in ours and have somebody else, make those type of decisions? So we just want clarity. And I think that will kind of play itself out with the changing of the guards as well. Hopefully we get a little bbit more of that and we get rid of the toxicity that's in there right now.
Well, I do love that crypto has become a political football now. Like I love, like the Democrats have kind of had to capitulate to be able to compete with Trump. I mean, if they are really going to run Biden out there, which at this point, I don't know. I'm not somebody who keeps tabs on that stuff every day because I don't really care, quite frankly. But if they're really running him out there, which at this point it seems like they're pretty much going to have to, it'd be nice to see them continue to capitulate on their crypto standings and try to match Trump on stuff like that. So, hey, it's good for us either way. You guys can fight all you want to. But, it's going to be very interesting. We'll certainly see. I don't know if they're going to end up debating later this year. I have no idea how that's going to end up. Definitely would be get your popcorn ready type of TV. We'll see if they talk crypto there at all. But it has been good so far. What do we got here from DJ Moboy? Yeah.
Gonna be a great
pump. Okay, yeah.
There beautiful pump. Everybody's saying, wow, what a pump.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, huge Shane Gillis. Pump. Shane Gillis has the all-time best Trump imitation that I've ever heard. The comedian. I love that guy. I love his.
Not familiar with him.
Oh, dude. Shane Gillis. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, let's talk the SEC for one quick moment here as well. So they just got hit hard again in this debt box case. So they have had a really bad experience with this one. First of all, they lost the case. Judge Shelby, the guy out in Utah, has already told them that they completely overstepped their bounds. They've taken things way too far, in terms of trying to dictate what people do. Like, you're an unelected agency. Nobody really told you that you could do any of this stuff, yada, yada. Now, after they've already lost the case, they have been ordered to pay nearly $2 million in the opposition's attorney and court fees after all this, ordered by Judge Shelby. So we continue, and I had a tweet I had bookmarked about this topic too. I wanted to get to for a second.
Send it to me.
Well, there's not really too much in it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just okay, so this is from Paul Grewal. So your taxes at work, Judge Shelby ordered the SEC to pay attorney's fees of over $1 million and receivership fees of about $750,000 after finding that the commission engaged in bad faith conducting and obtaining, defending the TRO, and imposed a sanction against the commission of all attorney fees and costs arising from the improvidently entered ex parte relief. So some legal talk there too. But essentially, he's punished them even more for this lawsuit and how they came after Debtbox. So we're just continuing. I mean, they're basically taking L's at every single turn. They just, everybody pretty much knows, like, the cat's out of the bag with them at this point. Now, out of the other side of their mouth, they're approving the ETH ETF. They're really all over the place. And I guess I'd like your thoughts on that follow up on the Debtbox thing, but also, we didn't really have this in our notes, but this leads me to this, like talking about the ETH ETF again, and then relating it to PulseChain too. So we know the PulseChain was a system state copy of Ethereum. Okay. And a lot of people have led that logic of passing the ETH ETF to, all right, well, PulseChain is clearly not a security when, you know, the SEC is already going after it for being one, and not just going after PulseChain. I mean, they've named pretty much every prominent crypto in the top 10 or 15 a security before. But is it just simple logic as, like, okay, Ethereum has evidently been deemed a commodity by the SEC by proxy now. PulseChain, same treatment. Now, there's other parts of that lawsuit too that are obviously frivolous, but is that logic that, like, hey, you pass an ETH ETF, then how do you have any argument against PulseChain? Like, do you think it's really that simple, or where do you come out on that?
I don't think it's, unfortunately, that simple, only because of the launch mechanism. And the decentralization factor, right? Ethereum has been around for long enough where, you know, there's a lot of Ethereum spread out across the masses. I don't think anybody, well, I don't know. I don't know what the Ethereum Foundation still holds as far as, again, I'm not a wallet searcher, so I don't know what those wallets actually hold. But I do know that the sacrifice wallets hold quite a bit of PulseChain tokens and Pulse X and things like that. So, I mean, I know specifically we're talking about Pulse right now, but unfortunately, I don't think it's quite decentralized enough to classify itself as a commodity. So, yeah, that's kind of where I stand. I wish it was as black and white as that, to say, well, Ethereum must be, so this is a clone of that, so it's got to be too. You know, there's a lot of other things that are clones of Ethereum. I don't think, did anybody else? Well, Ethereum Classic, same way, you know, that could be considered that. So, I mean, something like that would probably be fine. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other layer ones that just kind of forked Ethereum and went on their way. You know, Solana didn't do that. They have a different protocol. Binance Smart Chain didn't do that, I don't think. It was probably the closest.
Yeah, I don't think there's really, I don't think there's any real example of something quite like this. I guess what I'm saying also is that there also isn't, like, what is there to say that it is a security, though? You know what I mean? Like, that
right.
They still clearly can't say that either. So,
well, the beauty of things is that you only have to fail one leg of the Howey tests. So, you know, you can't, there's 5 different legs. So you only have to fail one of them. One of them has to be something. So, I mean, there is a good chance. But again, with answering your question is, does it automatically make it that? And I don't think it does. Not saying that it couldn't be a commodity, but I don't think just the fact that it's a fork of it, I don't think that serves enough proof, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you, because we've been seeing that on Twitter. Like, I've seen a couple of people kind of make that reference, and I was just curious as to your thoughts on that. And I agree
Yeah.
with you. That said, though, there's really no way I think that you can call it a security. I mean, again, there's already precedent with this. The SEC lost to Ripple, for Christ's sakes. Like, they
Right.
lost against the XRP token, which is the closest thing to possibly being a security in basically the realm of crypto. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Um, Cool. Let's see here. That reminded me. I wanted to go off on something else here. Oh, perfect. Okay. So if you guys are here and we're moving along quick tonight, we got some stuff we got to do tonight as well. But we appreciate all you being here. Alaska Fisherman, thank you for being here. Everybody, hit the like to help support the channel and Real DeFi. We know these are tough times. If you need a cope conversation and you missed the beginning of the show, go back maybe the first half hour. I think you'll be helped out by that. Alaska Fisherman, hope everyone is doing well. Just joining live, loving the dip. Scooped up some Pulse X and Hex last night and last week. Going to scoop up some more. I hope you're all doing the same. Heck yeah, man. That's exactly what we're doing. That's what we talked about at the top of the show. So appreciate you being here. Let's continue this SEC thing. So this is a trend. You and I have been talking about this, and we've said it on the show a couple of times. I thought Nuclear Herbs with a retweet of this tweet was very good the other day. And I will send this one to you. This is from Meta Lawman on Twitter. I don't know who he is. But his thought here sums up basically what we wanted to say very well, and I just sent it over to you. But with what's been going on with the SEC, the approval of the ETH ETF, and all these different things happening right now, and we know that the SEC kind of throws a bunch of shit at the wall to see what sticks against a lot of different crypto entities. We're very familiar with this. So Meta Lawman says, I wouldn't settle any crypto case with the current SEC before seeing how this election turns out. Given what Trump and Kennedy are saying, I would expect a very different SEC under open-minded leadership like Hester Pierce or similar. We've talked about Hester Pierce on this show before. She is kind of a dissenting member of the SEC. Gary Gensler has straight up made decisions and said things that she went back and wrote an article about how kind of terrible it was. So that's a possibility that she could maybe head that up at some point. But he goes on to say, for starters, I could imagine voluntary dismissals of crypto cases that Gary Gensler regime has initiated where there was no fraud and no victims. I definitely could see that. He says, I would expect to return to the core mission of protecting investors rather than trying to achieve political objectives through enforcement. That last sentence is the crux of the entire thing. And that's exactly what they're doing. And that's why a lot of people within actual government that were elected are starting to come at the SEC as an agency and say, look, you are not the arbiters. Like, you don't get to decide. You don't get to enforce your political objectives by throwing lawsuits at people like that. It's actually about trying to protect investors, not you disguising, that guise and that veil saying so. I'm interested in your thoughts on that point, but also we can talk about it in the PulseChain case or whichever case you want to, really. But that idea of like, drag this thing out, delay it as long as possible until that leadership is out of there and until things change. I think that has been the mode of Richard Hart's attorneys this entire time. I think it's been the mode of many crypto cases going on right now. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, we see the writing on the wall. Everybody hates Gary Gensler. Maybe not his family, but maybe they do. I don't know. But yeah, what do you make of that? Because I think that's a great idea to drag this stuff out, let some regime change take place. So,
well, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I said, unfortunately, this case is in late October. If it were only a few weeks later, and we could possibly see a changing of the guards at that point. So yeah, I totally agree to delay. See what happens, and see who becomes in charge over there when hopefully, if the administration changes, what happens on that side. Because people are getting fed up with these guys. They're already having to pay back lawyer fees and different fees. Essentially, they're saying, look, guys, we can't run this like the mafia. We can't do it. It's not right. And I just wonder how many existing cases could even get tossed out of the gate before they even happen. Right. And I don't know if that's a possibility. It would be cool if it was. and somebody comes in there and examines what the charges are and if there really are charges, or if it's just a whole bunch of somebody sending in a complaint letter because they made a bad investment, because that's kind of where we're at now with a lot of these things. I know there's one particular person who has done it 3 or 4 times, trying to get that, the reward money for doing so. So yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I really hope that, somebody else goes in there, examines what open cases are, which have been filed, and re-examines and says, listen, we're not even going here. This isn't our job. This isn't what we're here for. Protecting people, not monitoring closely their staking platform, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think that has been on the minds of these guys too. And, we'll see how that first case goes in October. Unfortunately, the date's set. It is what it is. I don't know that you stop a case midway. So I don't see that happening. However, it could play to an early dismissal, right? Jurisdiction easily could be played into this. And they agree with Richard's lawyers and says, no, we don't have any jurisdiction over this guy who's over there. And just because some of the users are in the United States, nobody has been frauded of anything. The money has not been spent, whatever they come to. But I could see that whole jurisdiction playing out quickly if there is a changing of the guard.
Yeah. And jurisdiction has been number one. They actually have a good argument for that because,
Right.
we've talked about it a million times. I mean, like the whole thing of like, oh yeah, at least one investor was in the Southern District of New York and at least one Uniswap developer lived around here, whatever. I mean, that could be true of so many different areas. I've said that a million times.
Yeah.
So that's a legitimate argument. But yeah, also, I mean, I think they're dragging it out in a realistic time frame as far as they possibly can to get everything on the table here. And then again, yeah, that first thing is just really going to be about jurisdiction. And then, even if that was not granted and the case wasn't dismissed from that, well, okay, then we'll go throughout the year, like the entire year, probably of 2025, going on about this. And by that time, you may have a Trump elected, you may have a Trump presidency. You could have Gensler out of there by that time. You could have a reformation of the SEC. I mean, the writing is on the wall. It doesn't really matter so much about this specific case. It just matters what is happening in the ethos with crypto right now, like in the atmosphere. The SEC is not trusted by anybody. They're losing cases left and right. We are seeing Democrats, for Christ's sake, capitulate on crypto stuff. So the SEC thing has just never worried me. Like it's a good conversation. I mean, for anybody that is entangled with them right now to, drag this stuff out as far as you possibly can. But it's just never worried me, and I don't think should worry anybody at this point. They just don't really carry any weight right now.
Agree.
So,
unfortunately, it does. As far as the charts go, you can definitely see where it started and how it's going.
Yeah. Yep, we shall see. But definitely Richard's attorneys, I think, utmost trust in them. I mean, their response to everything in this case has been fantastic. So really good to see everything that they have done, and we'll continue to follow that. So what do we got here?
Just petty to submit those claims. We're not going to mention his name, but he's talking about the guy that I had mentioned that had filed 3 of them because he was a terrible investor.
Yeah.
Treated as gambling.
Well, that guy isn't hard to find on Twitter. I think
he's not.
Pretty easily.
And he's pretty much in all of the big spaces, making sure that everybody hears him complain. So
he's an equal opportunity offender. He's talked out on Richard. He's talked out on Jack Levin.
Yep.
I think and it's funny because he's loved all these things and then has filed something with the SEC. Like he was all about Fair Crypto and Zen and Jack 11, and then he went against him. I think Jake Sharp maybe got the same treatment too. It's just a real strange way to go about things. But let's finish off on this. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this. So we have known for quite some time, and I think we mentioned it last week a bit. Crypto Coffee has, I think, spearheaded himself, but with other people too, the initiative to get the Pulse token, PulseChain listed on the MEXC exchange, which is actually a top 10 exchange in the world, I believe, by volume. Now, it's not available to people in the US, but in recent weeks, just last week, we had Richard Hart tweeting about Kraken and Binance asking for people to put tokens that they would like to see listed. You can fill out a form. Binance and Kraken both are outwardly asking people, hey, we want to sell you stuff so we can make money off your backs. Please tell us what token you want us to list, and we will note it. The casinos are opening up because they know that retail is coming here. What token do you want to buy? We'll try to get some and sell it to you. So Richard Hart tweeted that out, not specifically saying, hey, guys, if you want Pulse listed on there or whatever else, let them know. But reading between the lines, like you kind of have to do with Richard tweets sometimes, it seemed that way. And we went over that last week, and you can very easily find that tweet and go apply for the token on Kraken. That's what I would do. Binance, if you want to, but I think Kraken is the one to really go to there. But we do have, it looks like, I think it's on June 1st, like this Saturday, MEXC will go live with the PulseChain listing. So this will be the first exchange that Pulse is on. I am curious, Ewok, what your opinion, like, I personally think that if people have high hopes about what that will do, that it's going to be dashed pretty quickly. I don't think we're going to see any kind of like major thing just because we have a listing on MEXC. I am happy about it. I would like a PulseChain, at least just the Pulse token listing on one of the major US exchanges like Kraken, preferably, since they're actually trying to do this. But I don't think we're going to see anything huge come just from the MEXC listing. But it is one of the steps and the baby steps to getting this out there, getting people to onboard a little bit easier, hopefully having native Pulse on an exchange so people can easily get into the ecosystem. So what are your thoughts on the MEXC listing overall and just the idea of these other exchanges too?
I have mixed feelings about the whole thing. You know, usually when a token launches on Coinbase, for example, the price dumps. I don't know if it'll be the same thing. I do know that we still, not only did they have to pay to get listed, they also had to supply quite a bit of liquidity. I think it was probably 50 grand worth of liquidity as well. So you're now giving that exchange that many pulse tokens. So, you know, there's a couple different things that can happen with that. You can get a large dump event over there as well. You can have them get hacked, right? It's another variable to where an exchange gets hacked. Now, yes, they are a top 10 one, and you know, hopefully their security base is a little bit better than some, but some of the big exchanges have been hacked in the past. So, you know, we have to not forget about that as well. Cryptopia was hacked. Bitfinex was hacked. You know, some of these bigger players, and, you know, tokens were stolen. So we'll see. Yeah, I have mixed emotions. You know, we've always said about wanting to remove the middleman from the equation, and it seems that the only way to get big adoption is to inject middlemen. Unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword. So I don't know. It's not going to affect us here in the United States. So
right,
you know, there's not a whole lot that we can say or do. It doesn't really matter for us here. We'll see how the world adopts it, and if it does have consequences, or not consequences, but if it has, you know, good outcomes, then it may be incentivizing us to do it elsewhere. So I guess you kind of just have to watch, see what happens from it, and learn. Yes, I mean, obviously we want it to be as easy as possible for people to onboard to PulseChain. This is just one step to make it easier. However, there are risks involved. You know, it's not your coins. So do what you got to do. Use it like an outhouse. Get in, do your business, and get back out. So,
or a brothel,
or a brothel,
whatever.
or the slums. You know,
Yeah,
if you're going to meet your dealer, You know,
Right.
get in, get out, and move on. So
Yeah. Don't let them
yeah,
try to like, hey, how's it been going, man? And try to be your friend and have a conversation. Just, switch it.
exactly,
Yeah. Right.
exactly. So
Yeah.
just use caution, people. You know the rules. Don't store your stuff on the exchange. It's bad idea. So yeah,
It is a bad idea. And you basically just encapsulated every side of that argument. I mean, it's always everybody is always so conflicted about whether to get an exchange listing. When you're so entrenched in DeFi, especially as much as we are, I mean, like we literally do, you and I at least do anyway, I know, every time we do like a transaction on PulseX or Bridge or something like that, literally download it and run it off of our PCs. Like, I mean, it's 2 clicks, it's easy to do. Why not, why take any risk at all if you can do that? So if I
yep,
could run everything locally, that's what I would choose to do. But I understand that newbies are not going to know it as much. I do think that it is something they'll have to learn eventually, and it would be preferred that they learn. But if they first need to if they're familiar with buying ETH and stuff like that, and you need to do it on an exchange, and then you send it to PulseChain, but you understand how bridges work and stuff like that, you're going to need to learn that stuff. And everybody had to learn at some point. Exchanges exist, I think, for that reason, and it's everybody's kind of entry point. And you only learn by making mistakes. I mean, you're going to just have to make mistakes sometime to get there. Hopefully, it's not a colossal one where you really gambled away coins that weren't even yours to begin with.
right.
But I am in favor of at least Pulse. Really, that's all I wanted. I'd be interested in Pulse being listed on some of these exchanges, just so people could get it and get into the ecosystem and then
Yes,
learn after that. Yeah.
agree. So I don't know. Does MEXC have leverage? Do you know?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know much about them at all.
I don't know if we can even access it without a VPN. So I haven't even really looked at their exchange. I don't know what products at all they offer or anything like that. So
MEXC supports up to 200x leverage.
hmm,
So there you go. Yep. Just kind of put it in the Google machine anyway. Yeah. Yep. That's what it looks like.
okay.
Yeah. So it looks like there's a lot you can do on there. I know it's a top 10 exchange in the world anyway by volume. So I think it's good. I'm glad it's there. I think we're going to continue to work with these other ones. I'm sure that Kraken got an influx of requests after Richard Hart's tweet last week. And it's interesting to see him. We had a video come out the other day about, did he kind of flip flop on his thoughts about exchanges? I don't know. But I think if we do have more easier points of entry, just points of entry, just the tip kind of, to getting into the ecosystem, just the iceberg, then people can maybe learn things on the back end,
Yep,
I think that would be good. So
for sure.
I know we kind of got to get rolling tonight, you and I. Is there any final things that you wanted to get to tonight, Ewok?
Yeah, I do want to talk something that's a really quick topic. I don't know if people were watching. A couple months ago, we suggested that you pick up some 70-cent dollars on
Yeah.
the CST stablecoin. You'll notice if you look today, it's right back at like 99 cents or right about $1. It has repegged itself. I know it's only 30%, but could have got yourself some 70-cent dollar bills. Just to mention, it's bullish for them. Hopefully,
Yeah.
something in the works. I don't know who did it or if it was an arbitrage bot that stepped in and brought it back up. Excuse me, but it's bullish. At least it's good news. If it is them, then they're preparing to get back into things. I know you looked the other day and they said the update is no new update. So we haven't heard any update from them. We are pulling for them. Speaking of ways to get into PulseChain, it's one of the ones that I'm a fan of. I like the guys a lot. They're good dudes. I'm pulling for them to get their services back up and running. And yeah, so just to let you know, the Coast token has repegged, and that's a good sign anyway. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and that is for anybody that wasn't familiar, that's 0x Coast. Yeah, just the simple onboard into PulseChain right from your bank. Yeah, they did have a tweet the other day that basically that they weren't quite ready to deploy yet. They're onboarding 10 more banks, but they are still working on it. I think Crypto Coffee seemed to have some insight that it may not be till actually the fall of this year, which does suck. I mean, we thought they would be back way before then. I frankly had never used them. I mean, I've only used Bridges. I know Ewok has used them a couple times. It will be great when they're here, especially with added banks. That's all going to be fantastic. But there are still easy ways to get to PulseChain. So never fear. You can still get over there, but it is good that those guys are, hopefully getting back to normal. We're getting the CST stablecoin repegged again. So all good there. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for us tonight. I know we were a little bit quick tonight, but I think it was
one last thing. One last thing.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The Minect initiative ends in 2 days, I believe, on the 31st. So if you can get out there and help those guys, if you're familiar with it, Minect.com, I believe, is the website. It's a you can go in and you can ask questions. I think it might cost you $10. But what it does is gets 3 or 4 hexagons that are or pulsicans, whatever you want to say, people from our community that are in the running. It gets them dinner with Patrick Bet David and rubbing elbows with some people that could get the word out there for us. So it may only cost you $10 to ask them a question, but take a look at the leaderboard. You got Funding Jim, you got KG, and you've got Rags to Riches, Brandon Davis. So, go support one of your favorite influencers if you can. There's only 2 days left to do it. Try and get them in the top 3 so that they can, get that dinner with PBD. So I want to shout that out while it's still going on anyway.
Yes, we have a couple of more days. Those guys have done amazing things. All 3 of them have been pretty much in the top 10 throughout the entirety of this contest. So very cool. I've listened to a couple of PBD podcasts where he literally mentions their name on air at the beginning of the show. So awesome. Continued things that they do for outreach. Gary's down at Consensus in Austin right now. We got Matt there, Crypto Coffee as well. So great stuff from everybody. I know it's a tough time right now. I know prices are down. We don't always feel high. We don't always feel like doing the show necessarily, but I think having consistency and just kind of being around in times like this are very good, and we appreciate all of you guys being here. Alaska Fisherman, Mr. Chinks, of course, Yo Mackie, Blue Diesel, Take a Break with Jake, Patrico, Metastang, Hex Girl, DJ and Moonboy, everybody. Thank you guys so much. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back right here next week at the same time. So for my co-host Crypto Ewok, this has been Boi Crypto right here on the Creed of Crypto live stream. See you guys.